Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. I think we'll get started. So, very warm welcome to day 2 of our University of the Arctic NISER Thematic Network Ocean Workshop, which is funded by the Global Arctic Leadership Initiative through the University of the Arctic. And it's also, we're running this as a UHI Islands Matter webinar. The Islands Matter webinars have been going several years now. Beth, who's in the Marine Centre there, was instrumental in getting these started. These are opportunities for us to share research which is being undertaken in the Scottish Islands and in islands in other places, where we can learn what good research is being undertaken. And we've done webinars on Gaelic poetry from Prince Edward Island last week to depopulation in Japanese islands. So we've had a whole range of different topics. So this seemed like a very appropriate topic to have its own webinar. Laurie, we're going to do it. Laurie and I are going to do it like a double act. So, Laurie.
Well, so we're delighted to welcome our online participants who are joining us from across the North Atlantic. Pretty soon we'll get to hear where everybody's from. Today we're extending the reach of the conversations we began yesterday on the ground here in Shetland at UHI Scalloway, the Marine Centre here.
And to bring you all up to speed, our first day was an exploration into the Shetland context, looking at what the ocean actually means to an island community. And we were fortunate to have John Goodlett set the scene with a powerful overview of the Shetland fishery through time. And we discussed how the sea isn't just a site for industry, it's the very fabric of Shetland's cultural and historical identity. And in the afternoon, those lucky folk from the Marine Centre went on a trip to Lerwick to have a look at a gigantic trawler, which apparently costs £21 million.
Yeah, I was feeling, we were kind of estimating, okay, how much do you think this thing cost? And we started at 4 million, I think. And then somebody said, I think we need to add a few zeros to that. So anyway, yeah, 21 million. We didn't look just backward. Much of our discussion focused on the modern complexities of the marine environment. So these are some of the things we touched upon. The blue industrialization, which is sort of the growing tension between traditional sectors like scallop fishing and the rapid expansion of aquaculture and renewable energy. We talked about creative intervention, how we can use participatory research and the arts to give the community, and specifically our young people, a stronger voice in these changes. And we talked about future thinking. A key concept from yesterday was, quote, imagining the perfect future, and then reverse engineering the steps needed to get there.
Yeah, futurism is a topic of great interest to me, and I held a series of workshops a couple of years ago looking at the future of the Scottish Islands in 2050 and beyond. And obviously, marine heritage was very much part of the picture. And the goal for today's webinar is to take these local Shetland insights and expand them into an international dialogue with our online participants, who are all there, I'm very glad to see. And we want to explore how these themes of resource conflict, cultural heritage, and renewable energy resonate in your own regions, and of course, any other topics and themes that you want to bring up.
And of course, we're not just here to identify problems, although that's pretty easy to do, but to look at how international research, cultural heritage, and creative practice can offer new ways of navigating our relationship with the sea.
And we're all looking forward to a very productive session. So let's begin with doing a quick round of introductions. We have Laurie Brinklow.
Yeah, Laurie Brinklow here from the University of Prince Edward Island. I'm the chair of the Institute of Island Studies and coordinator of the Master of Arts in Island Studies program. And I normally live in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island on the east coast of Canada.
And then we have me. I'm Andrew Jennings. I'm at the Institute for Northern Studies, and I'm an Associate Professor of Island Studies, and I'm based in Shetland. And next we have Simon Clark.
Hello, I'm Simon Clark. I'm Head of Creative Communities in Shetland and an archaeologist by training. So I'm also very interested in network delivery of humanities courses particularly, but education generally within the Highlands Islands.
Thank you, Simon. And we also have Beth.
Hey everybody, I'm Beth Moat. I'm the Director of Research, Enterprise and Impact here at UHI Shetland. I have a background in fisheries and marine science, and I also have interests in languages, particularly Shetland language. I'm very interested to your discussions today.
Thank you very much, Beth. And we also have Andrew and Alyssa Halliday.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Halliday. I'm a cross-appointed faculty member at the University of Prince Edward Island alongside Lord Brinklow. I teach in the Island Studies graduate program as well as the Clean Tech Leadership and Transformation graduate program. And my background is interdisciplinary scholar as well as having a grounding in political science through various subfields of that, both applied as a civil servant for many years before coming to academia as well as my academic study as well. So very enthused about the discussion that we've had so far and looking forward to the discussion this afternoon. I can turn it over to my partner, Alyssa Grunwald.
My name is Alyssa, and my background's in marine natural products chemistry. So I worked in industry for the last 8 years developing products from the sea or developing products that were derived from the sea.
Thank you very much. And next we have Firouz.
Hello everyone, I'm Firouz Fahimi. I'm from the University of the Faroe Islands. I'm a professor in anthropology. I'm the director of research at the Faculty of History and Social Sciences. And my research has been looking at young people, small island cultures, island studies broadly.
Thank you, Firouz. And we have Laufey.
Yeah, hi. My name is Laufey Hafsdóttir, and I come from a small university in north of Iceland, Ola University, where I am placed in the tourism department, or rural tourism department. And I have been researching on islands, communities, destination development in rural areas, and yeah.
Thank you, Laufey. And we also have, I can't see everybody in the room, but I believe we have Pat there as well.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Pat Christie, and I live in Shetland, South Mainland, and I am the chair of the Shetland Heritage Association, which is a group of small museums, heritage centres, history groups, and individuals with an interest in heritage. So I find this all fascinating. So.
Thank you, Pat. And Maureen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maureen Whalen. I'm a PhD researcher here at UHI Shetland. Andrew Jennings is my Director of Studies, and Lottie is also on my Supervisory Committee, so I have to behave myself. But I'm very interested in the topic. I'm looking in particular at the impacts of nature-based tourism in Arctic and subarctic islands.
Thank you very much. Have I missed anybody else out of the room?
Yep, we have Kieran as well.
Hello, I'm Sharon Carden. I'm a lecturer in the Creative Communities Department in Shetland UHI. My academic background's in anthropology, and I've done research with island textiles and young people and language groups and things like that. And most of the people I teach are art students.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sharon. I couldn't see you there. That's good that you've been able to attend. Anyone else lurking under the table or?
I think we're good for the table.
Okay, great stuff. Excellent. So, moving to our online presenters, we have Frederick.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Frederick Sear. I'm a research scientist at the Fisheries and Marine Institute of Memorial University in island of Newfoundland in the province of Newfoundland, Labrador. I'm an oceanographer and climate scientist, and I'm interested in the changing ocean and how it affects, among other things, fisheries. I was also born on a small island in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, not too far from Prince Edward Island in Canada.
Must be the
Thank you.
Magdalen Islands.
Exactly, yes.
Beautiful.
There's a good crime series on telly about the Magdalene Islands I was watching. So, yeah, that's one of the island studies aficionados. And next we have Paul.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paul Foley, a professor at the Environmental Policy Institute at Memorial University's Grenfell campus, which is on the west coast of the island of Newfoundland in a town called Corner Brook. I teach in the Master of Arts in Environmental Policy program there mainly. My background, I have a PhD in political science, specializing in political economy. So I do a lot of political economy, political ecology of fisheries governance, coastal community development, and interdisciplinary sustainability studies. And I was also born and raised on a small island called Fogo Island, which is just located off the northeast coast of Newfoundland.
Thank you, Paul. Well, famous Fogo Island, yeah, amazing. And next we have Bryn.
Morning. Yeah, Director of Research, Education and Culture for Nunavut Community Council, so Southern Labrador and Eastern Canada. Yeah, representing 6,000 Inuit on this coastline. So we have island communities, we have coastal communities, all very isolated. We do research in all sorts of areas, but I do a fair bit of archaeology, tourism related, economic development pieces as well. So yeah, we're a little bit all over the map.
That sounds great, Bryn. Thank you very much, and it's great to have you with us. And next we have Kylie.
Hi there. I'm Kylie Best. I'm a fisheries biologist with the Center for Fisheries Ecosystem Research at Marine Institute, which is part of MUN. I'm next door to Fred in our office. I wear multiple hats, but today I'm wearing my student hat. I'm a student in the new program at Grenfell in transdisciplinary sustainability, and I plan to be doing some work in Iceland on social science, but I'm also an invasive species expert and do a lot of work in the ocean literacy, education, outreach, citizen science world, as well as other fisheries-based aspects we work on here.
Thank you very much. Great. And we also have Sinead.
Hi everyone, I'm Sinead Ní Áthachta. If you've guessed from the name, I'm from Ireland, from the Connemara coastal area in the west of Ireland. I'm here from the Marine Institute, specifically the International Programs Department, which is housed within the Policy, Innovation and Research Service area. But much like Kylie, I wear several hats, and today I am wearing my blue Action AA hat. It is a Horizon Europe project and a cascade funding mechanism under Horizon Europe, and the Marine Institute are the coordinators of this consortium. So I'll be discussing a little bit of how we're supporting communities.
Thank you very much indeed, Sinead. Well, okay. Well, the way this is going to work, we're going to have just a round table and discuss the themes that came up yesterday, and also any themes that you would like to bring up, with a goal of eventually writing a big research project which can tie all our island and coastal communities together, looking at our maritime past, our maritime present, and our maritime futures. And we all have different elements of expertise and interests that can be brought to the table. Now, I think Sinead wanted to do a quick presentation of the research that she's undertaken. That would be a good thing to get the brains working. And then I thought I'd ask everybody who's in the actually round the table in Scalawa to give us their impressions of Shetland's maritime heritage and culture as they've experienced it yesterday and today. And then I will pass on to Laurie to take over. So, Sinead, now it does say some people are outside your org. Oh, there we go. They don't have access to some Teams features. Now, hopefully you have access to the sharing feature there.
Yeah, let me just pop it up here. Okay, so there's, can you see that?
Yes, indeed.
Second. There's a lot of slides here that I'll skip over, but it's just a quick overview of something that may be of interest to everybody on the call today. Considering it's as I said, it's a tangible action and funding mechanism that may be suitable to many on the call. So yes, so I am part of a consortium of 8 partners, which consist of 8 partners in total from different countries around Europe. And the AA, so you're aware, is the Atlantic and Arctic. But I'll explain that a little bit more now in a minute. So just to reference, we have Air Centre in Portugal, us in Ireland, the Marine Institute, the European Science Foundation there in France, Centef Ocean in Norway, Plaucon in Spain, specifically the Canary Islands, NIVA in Norway, in the University of Aveiro, and also the University of Southern Denmark. So a nice mix of countries and specialities and expertise. So what is it? What is this Blue Action AA I speak of? It's well, it's essentially an EU funded project under the Horizon Europe mechanism, and our main objective really is to help local communities turn good ideas into real on-the-ground restorative actions. So how we do this is by providing funding and technical assistance and capacity building. So communities can actually reduce pollution, improve biodiversity, and support a sustainable carbon neutral blue economy. Okay, so that's essentially our objective of the project. There's 2 calls, there are 2 types of calls, both there's 3 in total, 2 of which are now open until the 29th of May. Probably the first would be of interest perhaps to participants today is the community-led pilot calls, or the community-led action calls, as we call them. So we plan on funding 5 large projects from this call, and there's a total fund, a lump sum of 7 million. So projects we anticipate to I suppose fund projects at about 2 million for this one. The transition agenda then, which is also the first one, is open, slightly smaller fund with a different objective, but there is a substantial fund all the same, and we plan on, I suppose, funding 20 projects or 20 roadmaps from this. And how did it all come about? It's, as I said, it's a Horizon Europe mission, which Horizon Europe funded project under the European EU missions. So excuse me now if everyone is very, very familiar with all of the missions, but just to briefly put it into context, the Blue Action AA is a 4-year 4-year project within this framework, and this mission Ocean, as it's commonly referred to, is one of 5 missions that the Commission have established under the Horizon Europe framework. And yeah, so within that mission Ocean, we have 3 hierarching or overarching policy objectives, which our calls are based on what the long-term impact and objective of each project proposal should focus on, which are protect and restore marine and freshwater ecosystems and biodiversity, prevent and eliminate pollution in our oceans and seas and waters, and make the blue economy carbon neutral and circular. So these are the three overarching objectives. Just so you're aware, the Commission also devised some lighthouses with the Blue Mission AA within the Atlantic Arctic coast. So there's 4 in total that have similar sister projects or calls that are now available and open. During the piloting phases of these of the mission, we focused on a specific objective for each basin, and as you can see, we were focused on protect and restore the marine and freshwater ecosystems. That phase, which was piloted from 2022 to 2025, has now finished, and we are now in the deployment phase of the mission. So this is what we're scaling up, I suppose, and becoming more actionable, hence the funds, the cascading grants that are available. And just quickly, so you have an overview of what is available for anybody. As I mentioned, the total budgets here for each call. The BAAC one is for community, and the BAAT one call is regarding transition fund, or agendas, I should say. The durations for the projects are between 6 to 24 months, with a shorter window for the transition ones. And there are a variety of stakeholders and entities eligible for this fund, including small and local organizations. So it's something to possibly review and see if you could build a consortium, or if we can support you in trying to action something locally. And that's what we're there for. We have a help desk there if you wish to get in touch, or I'll pop my email and my direct email as well in the chat later on if you want to get in touch. But just so you know, examples of some of the target groups that we're talking about that we'd like to hear from are port authorities, fishing communities, aquaculture producers, and other representatives of the blue economy, operators of vessels, local action groups, communities with conservation communities, tourism related public, you name it, NGOs, etc., etc., etc. So it's not an exhaustive list. And the main criteria is that the objectives, the 3 overarching objectives, are met, and that the actual project will take place within the Atlantic Arctic regions. Eligible countries, did I pass that here? I might have, but there is in terms of the eligible countries, it's the member states, the EU, the overseas countries, territories, and the Horizon Europe associated countries. So Faroe Islands, Greenland, you name it. I can't remember if there was somebody else on the call here that I haven't mentioned. Canada, obviously, as well. So yeah, just food for thought. Here's a little bit about the composition, but it's all in the guidelines and FAQs, which I can show you the website now. Again, the outcomes, the long-term impact for it. Here's some just examples of what applicants should focus on, but again, that is just an example basically for inspiration. Again, for the transition calls, I'm sorry, I'm flying through this because I'm aware there's several slides here. I'm nearly finished. Just timeline on getting proposals in are here, the 29th of May I mentioned. And we do have some expression of interest. If you wish to first reach out, I can share these slides afterwards if you would like the link to the expression of interest, and feel free to get in touch. there are some upcoming webinars. We've completed 2. Recordings are available on our website, and we have more thematic webinars upcoming, along with the information webinars for the transition agenda, the first transition agenda call. Here's the mailbox if you want to get in touch. And finally, this is the QR to our website. So a very, very quick whistle-stop tour of the project. Thanks so much.
Wow. Thank you very much, Judy.
All right.
That is, yeah, absolutely amazing. We'll definitely be having a look at that. Thank you very much for explaining it. And I was just saying some of the things you were mentioning, we have all of those things in the Shetland, port authorities and fishing communities, and goodness, you name it, we've got it. So
exactly, and we encourage everyone to have a look at the call and see if there's this funding. The more we're really keen to get as many really good proposals and get what the communities themselves want actioned, so this is the opportunity for it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Wow. Okay. Right. We'll go back to Scalawa, and if people could just keep it short, but just if Laurie can direct folk to tell us what they made of the Shetland experience yesterday. That is to say, Shetland's maritime heritage, rather than the weather or whatever. What were the standouts, and what were you sort of surprised with, and what do you think could correlate with your own communities? So, Laurie.
Great. Well, we'll just do around the table, starting with Andrew Halliday and my immediate, and then we'll just go clockwise. Sorry, Andrew.
That's all right. Thanks, Laurie. Well, I think from my perspective, I think John and Beth did a really great job at the start of the day yesterday, kind of outlining with their 2 discussions or 2 talks, kind of the historical aspects of the fishery here in Shetland, and also the contemporary state of play with respect to the fishery, and some of the really unique governance work that's going on here in partnership with the Fisheries Association. So that was a really good foundation that I took with me to our site tour in the afternoon that involved the Shetland Shellfish Association, as well as the Pelagic Fleet, which was the large offshore fishing vessel. And so I think with my my kind of background and interest in governance as it relates to the blue economy, obviously seeing the ability for the devolution of the powers, as Beth talked about, and the ability for the community and the industry to work together is something that doesn't directly translate to my home jurisdiction. But our fishing fleet is much different in being a nearshore fleet, primarily with very little significant offshore fishing, save for some snow crab quota that they fish. And so I think interesting to see that linkages between the levels of government, intergovernmental discussions, and also the ability for that kind of governance innovation to be brought forward. And it was balancing kind of the research and the applied side of things, getting to hear from the captain directly about the vessel and some of his insights and his crew. I thought it was a really good foundation for us to kind of bring into our discussion, and I think it reflected a little bit in our conversation a little earlier this morning as well. So I'll stop there and leave lots of room for everyone else to share their thoughts too.
Lovely, thank you. I love it.
Yeah, I from yesterday, I've been in Shetland before and had a totally other view from another viewpoint, which was the sheep and the wool. So from yesterday, I think the most what I remember or thought was most interesting was the talks of Beth and John in the beginning, and to realize how much in common we have in Iceland and other islands around in the North Atlantic. How the situation is common and how the common history we have also actually, and that we are really dealing with the same issues, that kind of thing. So, and it was interesting to go into the trawler there and I'm not sure if I want to work in one, but but they was very interested and they were very hospitable and gave us a lot of time and showed us around in there. So it was interesting, absolutely.
Beautiful, thank you. Pat?
No, I took a lot from yesterday and today. And the biggest thing I've taken is the fact you just mentioned that the commonalities, the sameness of some of our history and our traditions and our culture, which was very interesting. I've also thought of ways that our group could work with the groups that is in our association to actually build on what I've learned today. That sort of thing. So yeah, I took a lot from it. And, I knew the captain of the ship. I knew him many years ago, and it's interesting to see him now in his huge trawler and compare it to the small fishing vessel that he started off his family business with. So yeah, very interesting.
Great, thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, I agree that it was a. I agree that it was a very rich experience and very interesting day yesterday. I really enjoyed the presentations in the morning by John and Beth. It was very informative and it showed. It also showed differences and similarities between the Faroe Islands and Shetland. And John, he has been in the Faroe Islands, I think, around 40 times. So it was also a lot of information about the Faroe Islands. And he's working on a new book, his second book, which is discussing also the Faroe Islands. So I think that was very interesting. Also, I was very impressed by the work that Beth was presenting from Shetland, which I think makes me reflect on what we could do better maybe in the Faroe Islands than we do today, and how we can learn from our neighbors. Very interesting to see how closely the fishers and the scientists and the communities work together. And then the Shetland Fishing Association and the trawler trip was also very interesting. The visit to the trawler, not the trip. We were not sailing. In the Faroe Islands, we have several fishing associations, and they have very different interests, and they are sometimes in disagreement about the distribution of quotas and rights and policy. So that was interesting in itself to see how the fishing industry and the workers in the fishing industry in Shetland seem to be very united, that it seems to be a very well organized association, I think. So that was interesting, and getting on board the trawler was also this huge trawler. We have a lot of big trawlers in the Faroe Islands, and I hardly ever put my foot into any of them, and I don't think all the captains are willing to have groups of guests into the vessel. So that was a great experience where the captain and his staff, it seemed like they had booked the whole day for us. They just had plenty of time, and we saw most of the main rooms and spaces in the trawler. We also, I can't remember his name, but the captain also, his knowledge and his way of communicating reminded me very much of Faroese captains. I was thinking if he spoke Faroese, he could have been Faroese. He has so much knowledge, local knowledge also about the sea and the sea floor and the currents and the weather sailing between the islands and through the ocean. It was such impressive combination of local knowledge and also professional scientific knowledge.
Good. Well, we should probably pass
Yeah,
on.
yeah, that's not it, that's not it.
Thank you.
I'll pick up the baton talking about that trip then, I think. Yeah, that, for me, that was a really major highlight to see the boat and to speak with the crew. Clearly very, very capable professionals, very knowledgeable in their own way. And what I was also very struck by was their frustration that they couldn't contribute more to the knowledge base and influence policy more. They clearly have something to offer there, but there's clearly also a tension that they have a particular agenda to push as well. And so that was something that I was interested to hear. And the other thing that I guess that came out we were all slightly chuckling about was the gender dynamic. With the suggestion of, do you have female crew or would you consider female crew? And it was just kind of possibly no. But obviously women's position within the exploitation of the sea is also significant. So I think the gender dynamic is also something very interesting that we should be thinking about as well. And I'll hand over at that point.
Great, thank you. So, yeah, I'll keep this relatively brief. The one thing, because I'm new to Shetland. I just moved here last October, so I'm just getting my feet under me, so to say. And I was just so impressed with the importance and the significance of fishing heritage to folk here. And so I knew it on the surface level, but I feel like yesterday, this morning, really brought it home to me how important that is and how that can be maybe communicated a little bit more to people who come to visit, that it's not just a dead past thing, but it's very much vibrant and alive and we appreciate it and cherished, really.
Thank you. Sean, did you want to make any comments? Sorry I wasn't able to join you more yesterday, and I'm sorry I missed the smaller trip. But I suppose having lived in Shetland for a decade, just the pervasiveness of the sea in people's lives in all sorts of different ways is really striking. You know, most of my neighbours either worked with the sea or worked with the sea in some form, and my partner does, and I think the sense of the sea being a peopled place and an industrial place rather than like an empty wilderness is really important. And we've got so much happening in Shetland in terms of the enormous salmon farm that's coming, the aquaculture stuff, the offshore wind, whatever's going to happen with Salmon Port, the cruise industry, the fishing. You know, there's so many aspects to ways that the sea is a place with people in it. I'm kind of interested in the sort of anthropology of the seas. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm thinking as we try to create a larger project, that the fishery in Shetland is such a wonderful metaphor and a real lived experience, but it expands, as we've all said already, that there's this connection amongst the North Atlantic. And so always keep in mind the big picture of all of those elements that you've mentioned and the tensions that can come and also the beautiful things that can come out of it. So that's where my mind went in thinking about yesterday. And Beth.
Yeah, I mean, I guess much has already been said, so I'll maybe pick up on some of the things that haven't been spoken about. And I guess some of that was around the shared challenges that we have around things like how we manage the development of renewables, things like marine plastics and marine pollution and climate change and all of these challenges that are shared but felt keenly by us as islanders. And that the idea somebody mentioned earlier, but there is just one ocean. We're all connected through and within that piece. I think I was also struck with the innovativeness of islanders and the capabilities that we have and examples of best practice around all of the contributions that we've had today and yesterday. It's been really encouraging. And really struck by the knowledge and the value of the contributions that island communities can make to finding solutions to some of these complex problems. And sometimes that can be overlooked when we look at government policy making and contributions, that the value of those contributions can be overlooked, so something that we really need to build upon.
Wonderful. So Andrew, I know that you were a fly on the wall or on the owl yesterday. Would you like to contribute to, I know you couldn't do the trawler visit, but I know you were also listening in. And so what were your key takeaways from yesterday?
Well, it was just the conversations and the range of different subjects that came up from, you know, ocean pollution and how to deal with that, how to maintain the marine way of life, you know, how to keep good jobs in the islands, the question of governance, who should actually be making the policy for protecting the oceans. Should it be national government, or should it be devolved down to the communities themselves? And I think we had some great examples of it's done best, closest to those who have a finger in the pie, as it were. Fishing and marine heritage is important to people in Shetland, not so important to people in Edinburgh, and definitely of no interest whatsoever to people in London. So we should be engaging with the community, and we should be looking at ways of developing and governance policies in the islands, and letting, I mean, the work that's being done in the Marine Centre is fantastic, with the marine planning and the interaction between the scientists there and the fishing community. It's a kind of a wonderful example that could be shared with other communities. So governance, that was a very important one. And we also started talking about the impact of climate change on the islands. That's the coast, but it's also big developments that are taking place that interact with the fishing community, like the establishment of large offshore wind farms, that kind of thing. So there's big changes in the offing, and how are we going to cope with that, so that we maintain our marine-based island communities 50 years in the future. But I think some really good things are being done in Shetland, and the reason that I wanted this workshop to be based in Shetland was because I think Shetland makes a good case study. There's so many interesting things going on. It's such a marine-based society. I know those people who have crofts argue against that, but nonetheless, you know, it's so important for Shetland for so long, and it's going to continue to be important for the future. So yeah, it was just that. I thought it was a very succinct description from both John and Beth of the importance of the sea to Shetland, and the importance of fish. Fish is very important. So if you ain't got no fish, you don't have any communities in the islands. So, and Shetland seems to be doing quite well in preserving its fish stocks, which is pretty good considering it doesn't have a lot of power to do that, but it's doing some good work. So that was it really, and it was just I'm glad you managed to get on the trawler, because sometimes when people come to Shetland and they see these huge pelagic trawlers, they think that folk must be hoovering up all the fish out of the sea. But of course, it's not quite like that. It's managed pretty well, and of just the opportunity to meet folk from communities that have similar challenges and similar interests. It's very important. There's cultural continuity, but there's also geographical continuity as well. So that being said, hopefully everyone who has been listening in, presenters online, have some idea of the sorts of topics then that were discussed. So, you know, with marine pollution, maintaining good way of life, preserving jobs for the future, also how to get, you know, maybe researching the gender divide. That was an interesting one that came up, and how to maintain our islands beyond 2050 by looking after all aspects of the marine heritage, not just the economy, but the culture and traditions as well, because it builds identity in the communities and gives people a sense of worth and a sense of belonging. So yeah, so there we go. Now I'll pass you back to Laurie, and maybe we can get some of our listeners there to contribute. But just before that happens, I saw there was a couple of people in the chat who actually have something interesting to say as well. So once we've had our conversation, we can maybe ask Oscar to tell us about what was it now? Some interesting work that's been low impact fisheries off the West Cork Islands in Ireland. That sounds very interesting. And then maybe a word from Mandy, colleague of ours, as well would be good. But anyway, I'll pass the direction back to you, Laurie, to get some words of wisdom from our online guests.
Yeah, so yesterday we got the conversation started by we asked the question of our participants, and this is the question I'm going to ask our online participants. Based on your own knowledge and expertise and lived experience, and thinking about the different themes that have been mentioned today, as well as in some of the material that was sent ahead of time, where do you foresee yourself fitting into something like this? What would be your big interest, your big contribution, your big question that you might have in thinking about sustaining island communities? And I know based on your expertise that there's going to be a lot that you have to say, because I read your bios and I've seen some of your work. And so really wanting to hear from you folks online as to your what kind of contribution that you might be able to make to this project, as well as to, you know, making perfect island communities 50 years from now. Paul, do you want to go first? You put your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Laurie. I normally don't put it up that fast, but I'm literally sitting outside a hockey rink where I'm coaching my daughter, and we're between games, so I can't go overtime today a lot. So
yeah,
we're all in the Olympic spirit here. Okay, so yeah, there's so much. I saw the notes from yesterday, and there's so many linkages, right? What I'd like to do, I'll share a couple of links to some papers and themes that you can follow up on if it's useful for the grant applications or whatever. One area of research is on sort of the access and benefits. We've talked about the conflicting interests and so on. So we've done some work there. I'll just post a paper. I've also been heavily involved in a project co-leading it on infrastructures, thinking about coastal and ocean infrastructures in a more diverse way, not just your physical built infrastructure, but a lot of scientists see, ecosystems as a form of sort of natural infrastructure. So we've been developing some frameworks around looking at diverse types of infrastructures in coastal community contexts. And the last thing was the futures thinking. So it was really exciting to hear about everyone's interest in that. We're also quite involved in doing some futures thinking work, particularly around the concept of foresighting. So we have one published paper on foresighting in the context of sort of high-level international review of the literature and its lack of current application to coastal communities. It's usually pretty elite-driven, expert-driven work. So building more work around, community-led futures thinking. So I'm supervising a PhD student working on Fogo Island currently, looking at the role of, or potential role of, seaweed in a long-term futures thinking set of workshops. So he's using foresighting techniques in that sort of participatory foresighting. Finally, I would say one of the projects I'm really interested in, and I heard it come up around port authorities and harbor authorities. So I'm currently developing a research project around the future of small harbors, rural northern harbors. So looking at small harbors as a sort of unit of analysis that could bring in diverse disciplines and thinking right from the arts to obviously sciences and social sciences. Governance is a big part of it from my perspective. and I've been doing some preliminary work on the role of port authorities and harbor authorities in the Canadian context as well as in the UK and other contexts. So, there's some similarities and differences in how the governance of ports play out. There's also the question of the role of municipalities and small towns and so on, and obviously the industry or various industries. And this becomes more complex as new industries like renewable energy come on stream and look for access to small ports and harbor infrastructure and so on. And a big part of that will be in line with some previous work I've done is, what are the communities thinking? What would local knowledge, what role could local knowledge play in working through those challenges? So, anything on those areas, I certainly see a big interest for me, but particularly on small harbors, right? Like, really interested to learn about different contexts in Shetlands and other places, and how that might compare and contrast with the Canadian context or some of the harbors in rural and remote areas and northern communities that we're looking at over here. So great, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul, and hope your daughter wins her hockey game. That's funny. And I've never heard that expression foresighting before, so I'm going to really look into that. That's really cool, and I know Andrew's going to eat it up. Kylie, would you like to talk a little bit about your work and how you see what you're doing and thinking and living might fit in with what we're talking about here?
Hiya, thanks. And also thanks for the invitation to come, even though it wouldn't have happened even if I tried. We got dumped on with like 50 centimeters of snow here the last few days, so we wouldn't have been able to get out anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, I have lots of different, I guess, ideas, and my PhD project is still kind of forming. But the aspect that I will be working on in Iceland, hopefully with colleagues at the University College Westfjords, is going to be on citizens sort of public perception of aquatic invasive species, which is sort of a very detailed aspect of climate change for all coastal communities all over the world. So I can see that as maybe something that could be a piece. And then sort of leading into that is citizen science is a big part of aquatic invasive species monitoring all over the world as well. And I noticed that the EU and the rest of the world does a much better job of it than we do. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to learn from other coastal communities, so that when I say we, I mean Newfoundland and Eastern Canada. We have small projects, but there's not a massive, larger organization or effort or funding pot for it. It's all very pocketed. So I'm curious to learn more about that potentially from other Atlantic colleagues. And and speaking about the youth retention and engaging with youth is also very interesting to me too. I've done a lot of that in my travels with work here in Newfoundland as well as in Grenada. And so I see a piece, there's loads of programs and supports to recruit youth into the ocean industries, for women in science, all those different aspects, and that's wonderful. But I think there's a bit of a lacking in the retention aspect. So I see a lot of gaps in our industry for mid-career folks. So I think, and I haven't done a deep dive into the literature on this quite yet, but I think it's worth looking into, that youth get introduced and there's loads of supports and funding to get them in there and get them trained and start their careers. But then 5 years in, there's a lot of exits. And why is that? Is there a gender aspect to that? Is there other social aspects to that? Why is that? And is there a support, or is there a way we can support people so that they maintain their positions, whether it be project-based or employment support or networking, that type of stuff that's not super ocean sciencey, but it's a support to the people that we need for the industries to survive. And if we're going to, the blue industry is blowing up and we need to have experts in that field. So getting them in there, wonderful, yes, but we need to work on the 5 to 10 year people who we want to keep in there. Yeah, those are the things that kind of like are sticking out for me right now. But I'm involved in so many different things. Paul hearing about the seaweed is super exciting. I've done some seaweed stuff too. And also on Fogo Island. And yeah, Fogo Island, I think, is another great connection for all of this, because it's another very small island community that does its own thing and is very successful in community engagement. So I think there's connection there potentially too.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bryn, would you like to say a few words now? Your turn.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's all very familiar kind of topics. I think for our area, our community that I'm thinking about most right away is Black Tickle. It's very isolated, heavily dependent on the fishery. Just now, kind of getting back into the Labrador cod fishery. I'm not a fisheries person, but like a lot of our communities are dependent. So all of this sounds very familiar and is of interest. One of the projects we're working on is cultural transmission between elders and youth. So we have a kayak building project. We're trying to repatriate an original kayak from France. That's in a museum over there that went over with the Basque. No, that's not the Basque. That's the French. There was another Basque one. Anyway, we have an elder who's started building kayaks, and we want to kind of do that transmission between elders and youth, talking about the fishery, the importance of the fishery, past and present, that kind of tying culture to community, historic and contemporary, is very important. And Black Tickle, Cartwright, Spotted Island, these are all along the Labrador Current, kind of like the Fogo. Those communities are kind of like the southernmost reaches of the Arctic Barrens subarctic ecoregion. So you've got David Strait polar bears, you've got bake apples and permafrost at their southern boundaries, and a whole lot of archaeology that needs to be explored. So all of these topics are of great interest to us, and I'm really, I haven't had a chance to look at the notes in detail from your conversations, but the tourism potential around those things and those aspects helping sustain communities, there's potential there that we would like to explore. And then, yeah, boat building traditions. We have work started on that as well. We have our brand new national park that includes the Wonder Strand, which has some archaeology of its own, potentially Norse as well. So tourism is huge in terms of potential sustainability for communities that are very isolated, and options are limited. So we don't have the same kind of issues around, or at least yet, the wind power. There's been some talk about it, and loss of or impacts on space. We don't have the aquaculture issues yet. We're really isolated. And yeah, okay. That's a little bit about us and some of our interests, and I look forward to talking to folks further.
That's great. Isolation isn't something that we've talked about very much, maybe because we're all from where we are and we feel like we're the center. So
Could I just speak up on that? I think that's a really interesting theme of we talked about retention of population. I think we do also need to talk about permeability between populations, how accepting communities are of others, and what level of income or renewal of population or inflow of population is comfortable or sustainable or beneficial. And I think that's a really sensitive issue, and there isn't perhaps a correct answer. I think will obviously vary by communities and from individual perspectives, but it's not wholly healthy to just retain population. You actually need people to go out and then come back again, and for other new people to come in as well.
Yeah.
So the balance of that, I think, is a really interesting political and social problem.
Okay, great. We'll come back to that hopefully. I want to ask Frederick, and then we're going to go to Oscar, who's been very patient with his hand up, and then Mandy. So Frederick, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, being mindful of the time, I'll try to be brief. So as I mentioned, I'm a oceanographer and climate scientist, and a lot of my work is to disentangle anthropogenic climate change. So yes, the global warming, the planet is changing, but historically, especially at higher latitudes, the climate has been fluctuating naturally as well. And so we see those fluctuations, and it affects fisheries. It has been known for centuries that some fishes comes and then they go. And so I'm kind of interested, being a natural scientist, but this group is mostly social scientists, how changing climate is affecting the fisheries, but also our response to these changes, for example, in terms of fisheries management. But it could also be invasive species, etc. So yeah, if there was an opportunity to work with collaboration with social scientists, how changing climate changed the fish, but also the social aspect in terms of lifestyle or management. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, where did Oscar go? Oscar, do you want to say something?
Hi, thanks. I'm sorry I'm late coming to this. It only got shared with me earlier this morning. So my name's Oscar Daly and I'm based on Bear Island in County Cork, in Ireland. A small island. We have a population of 220. I was a fisherman for 20 years myself, but now I work locally as the local community development officer. And we're in the middle of a project. It's called the Low Impact Fisheries Pilot, where we've gotten 5 fishermen across the 7 inhabited islands of West Cork to participate in trialing alternative fishing gear. So what we've done is we've kind of gone back in time, and we have we've made willow lobster pots, and we've also made a new modern timber framed pot like what they use in Newfoundland, but we've altered it for what will work in Ireland. So as part of the project, each fisherman is going to be given 10 to 15 pots to fish alongside their standard plastic pots, and they will record all the data, and we will see after in September, after the lobster season, we'll analyze the data, and we will see, is it feasible to go back to this type of technology fishing wise. I'm fully sure that it is, because from talking to the old fishermen, like the only reason why they stopped fishing the timber pots and went to the plastic pots was basically because the plastic pots there was less work in them. So hopefully by bringing back the use of the timber and the willow pots, one, there's no plastics involved. Two, it will get rid of ghost fishing of the gear, because they won't withstand, the first gale that comes along, both pots wouldn't withstand the weather. And we're also the only thing for the pilot that we can't change is the rope, because we haven't come up with a suitable alternative for the rope, but we are looking at potentially we've gotten a few coils of rope made from sheep wool, from Rathlin Island in Northern Ireland, so we're going to be trialing that with the gear as well. And also what we're really keen on doing is developing kind of a brand around the fishery that will maximize the profits for the fishermen involved. So hopefully it's a less for more rather than more for less. So we've reached out to restaurants and hotels who will support the project, and they will pay the lobster. They'll be sold both. Will be straight from the boat to the restaurant at a premium price, guaranteed for the entire lobster season between March and September. And the program only works in the traditional lobster fishery season. So it's to promote going back to fishing the seasons where fishing grounds and species get a break from the commercial fishing side of it. So hopefully the gear will work. The fishermen will have more money in their pocket. And there's the social aspect of it as well. Since the project started, you know, we've ran a few workshops on how to make willow pots. We're kind of spreading, there's an education piece to the project where we will be running workshops with the children on the islands. We've got a few other partner kind of agencies to come in and run environmental water testing, seaweed foraging, making rope out of grass, the traditional way. It's to harness our tradition and our culture, but also to pass it down to the kids. Like and they might never do it, but at least they'll know how it can be done.
Beautiful.
And it's to bring life back into the islands, which would have mostly up until 20 years ago been very fishing orientated, but there's been a rapid decline in the fishing industry here. And like on Bear Island, we've only 3 active fishermen left, where when I was a teenager, nearly everyone you met would have been involved in fishing. So and we're hoping that after the pilot will be feasible, we're in the process of setting up the next stage, which will probably be its own organization, and hopefully we'll be able to bring everything that was good about the project and can continue to develop it, and obviously move out of just the West Cork Islands, but go nationally with it. So it's kind of a new outlook, and it's bringing in a better way of fishing. It's bringing in the culture, the heritage, the education side of it. And the fishermen will also kind of become scientists because they'll be recording the data. So yeah, it's really exciting. And I'm glad that I was invited to this by a friend of mine there earlier. I think he's still here, Peter Prendergast, because it looks like what you're talking about around, it seems to be all over the North Atlantic is right in line with what we were trying here. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming along. And is there a, do you guys have a website or anything like this? Or you just look up Bear Island?
We don't. There is a website going live on the 21st with the project.
Okay.
I don't have links to that. It's funded from the SFC, which is Sustainable Fisheries Communities, and I think they're launching. And we've already done a few promo videos and things.
Okay.
So the project won't really be up and running until the pots go in the water, and that's looked at maybe the end of March, April.
Okay. Oh, thank you. We'll be watching for it. That's
Yeah.
great.
I've made Peter a presenter, so if maybe Peter wants to pipe up and tell us about Creative Places West Cork.
Sorry, I was sort of walking around. Yeah, Places West Cork Islands. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. As Oscar was saying, we're a culture funded by the Arts Council and Cork County Council, and we're developing culture initiatives across the 7 inhabited West Cork Islands. And I work very closely with Oscar on Bear Island. Oscar runs lots of different cultural programs through the Bear Island Projects Group. So while our focus is on culture, we're also very interested in environmental and ocean environmental issues. Actually, we have a big project at the moment called Ocean and Environment. You'll see it on our website, Creative Places WCI.ie, and we brought 6 artists together to work on the West Cork Islands on questions related to the environment, to oceans, to being an islander in contemporary context, things like dereliction, things like plastic pollution, Oscar's fishing project, sustainable fishing, these kind of things, and we're asking artists to respond. So that's what we do, and it's really great to be in this forum, because I can see there's lots of people passionate about this subject as well. So thanks for the invite to say a few words.
Beautiful. Thank you, Peter. That's great. So we've heard so many wonderful ideas, and already I can see light bulbs going off around the room here. And so does anybody have anything that they would like to respond to or make a connection? Because that's what this is supposed to be all about, cross-pollinating. Is there something that really jumps out? Just hold up your hand or put your hand up online, and we'll be glad to have you join the conversation. Or if you have a question for somebody else as well, for one of the other presenters or speakers.
Christina had a good question in chat. Sorry, I'm just leaping in there. She's the Associate Professor of Nutrition and Food Systems at Iowa State University, a lifelong landlocked dweller. Well, I'm sorry about that. She teaches courses on systems thinking and sustainable food systems, and her research explores the relationship between food and place. And a trip to Shetland 10 years ago opened her eyes to islands as models of food systems. And then she said further on down the line, where are we? In a second. Get there eventually. Got a slow system here. Oops. Right. Well, I can't find the other bit, but she was also talking about the value of fish and meeting John Goodlad, and it bears on the conversation that we had yesterday about islands and the ocean being potentially the answer to feeding the population of the future, and that seafood potentially has a far lower carbon footprint than other forms of food. So that's not something I know anything about particularly, but that was a discussion that we had. So I wondered if anyone else in either Scalloway or online would like to pick up about that, how we could be, not just providing resources for ourselves, but helping feed populations in the future.
I can maybe come in.
Okay,
there's an interesting connection here. Obviously, we've spoken about how islanders are obviously very connected to the sea and to the maritime history, but Christina's point here is around how we can inspire non-island dwellers to share some of that connectivity to the sea and to the fish as a food source, and that issue of ocean literacy, and maybe translating some of what we understand to these urban centres, and that would go away, I guess, to sharing some of that place-based knowledge that we have, and looking at ways of translating it to policymakers as well as consumers.
Yeah, policy was something that we talked about yesterday, and that the disconnect, it seems, between on the ground knowledge and then the political will to actually make change. And so trying to involve, that was one of the reasons why the North Atlantic Forum, which is one of these organizations I belong to, and that there will be a NAF, North Atlantic Forum, in Corner Brook in Newfoundland in June, and then hoping to, the plan is to have 2028 back here in Shetland. So, but it brings together policymakers, researchers, industry, and academics in a really collegial manner to try and sort out some of these issues. And so looking forward to, maybe, we talked this morning, but perhaps Ocean, this project might end up having a platform at the North Atlantic Forum in 2028 back here in Shetland. Mandy, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an imposter here because I live on the Scottish mainland, but I mean, I talk about it as the Isle of Ascent because we've got so much in common here in the Northwest Highlands with island communities. And I think one of the things that I'm interested in is kind of trying to encourage islanders to keep alive the connectivity across the water to also their mainland neighbours, because a lot of us in mainland coastal communities are very remote and very deprived and a long way from a lot of development and resources. And certainly, I mean, I live 30 bit miles across the sea from Stornoway, which is by far and away my closest supermarket, cinema, solicitor, dentist, you name it. But I'm 100 miles on the mainland from all of those things. So but in the olden days, of course, we were highly connected across the water. And these days, mainlanders have got so obsessed with kind of road travel and stuff that we've kind of forgotten and lost some of the sea connectivity that islanders, I think, retain. And so just a sort of encouragement to reach out to us. And I think that, just to comment on that, that idea about future sustainability of island-based and marine-based food resources. I think that works as long as we can shift the sea users to alternatives to marine diesel. And that's certainly something I'm very interested in the way in which we design the green transition so that renewable energy is available in harbours and for electrification of of boats and so forth, so that we ensure that we actually can deliver sea products from that are not just spewing out lots of fossil fuels. And at the minute, certainly our experience here is that the fishing industry is slow to move on that and is lagging behind some other industries in looking at alternatives to marine diesel.
Thank you, and thanks for reminding us about the mainland and our connections, because we are always, as islands, in relation with the mainland, and we can't ignore it. It's something that we've come again, time and time again in island studies, that they are connected, and it's all, we can't forget about it. They sometimes forget about us, but we can't forget about them for some reason. Any other comments? Yes.
You know, one ocean.
Yes, this is Pat talking, yeah.
Sorry, yes, we're going to do, John was talking about yesterday morning and feed the whole planet here in the ocean. Then we need to keep the ocean clean. And I think that goes back to our discussions about pollution and microplastics and seaweed. Seaweed is now polluted as well. So we need to somehow be able to work together to actually keep the oceans clean. So the food that was southern eaten is not full of plastic.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it was encouraging to see that one stream on Sinead's Blue AA funding stream. So maybe we can put together something for that from based on community organizations from around the North Atlantic. I think that'd be terrific. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Andrew, was there anything else in the chat that you wanted to mention?
I see that Amy says on the topic of food source, the Climavore have projects on the Isle of Skye. So that's something important to look up. And just on Mandy's comment, I think in island studies, we always sort of, our go-to position is that the mainland is the kind of the center, and the islands are somehow, you know, off the center and are always struggling to be taken seriously and, you know, do their own thing. But in actual fact, historically, as Mandy suggested, the mainland coast of Scotland was intimately connected to the islands, and the islands were the center, and the coast was the kind of the external bit. And maybe this just could be something more generally for island studies, that maybe we have to have a more nuanced attitude towards things. Because I mean, in your area, Mandy, wasn't it MacLeod's of Lewis or whatever, they were settled there, and so it was territory that belonged to folk on Lewis rather than the other way around. So the peripheral bit was the coast, and you become doubly peripheral now that these old connections have been severed.
Totally, I absolutely agree. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
You Islanders are still the centre. Don't forget that. Definitely. I'm not trying to take that away from you.
That's great. Awesome.
Is there an emailing list or for this group that I could be added to? Or where is there somewhere where people could share information?
Yeah, Andrew, do you want to add, Oscar, do you want to put your email address into the chat there? And Andrew keeps he's the keeper of the list. And anybody else as well, if you're online and in the audience, we already have all of the speakers, but if you would like your email, Christina, I know you had from Grand Manan, it'd be wonderful to have your connection, contact info, Peter and Oscar, Mandy. I know there's a few other people on the call. I can't see them all at the moment, but you just put it in the chat. That'd be great.
I'm not so sure how chat survives after we switch this off. So what I've done is I've put my email in the chat. So if anyone who wants to join the group, have more involvement in this, if you just take my email off chat, so andrew.jennings@uhi.ac.uk, and send me an email, and CC Laurie in as well.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you. So our next step then, I think after we're finished here, we're going to have a conversation around how do we go about finding funding sources. And it was wonderful that Sinead started the conversation this afternoon with her, the possibilities there. But if anybody has any ideas of where to go for something like this, please get in touch with us. We're going to have a conversation here around the table about that and how we are going to proceed. What are our next steps in trying to put together some kind of a research project, whether it's large or small, or we hive off little bits and pieces of it. It's all up for grabs. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And so it would be wonderful to have you folks that are online be part of the conversation as we go forward via email or whatever. However we end up doing it, maybe we'll end up having another webinar or another meeting or something like that online. I'm really grateful to the Global Arctic Leadership Initiative Fund from the Government of Canada for funding it, making it possible for us, the 5 of us who came here today, and to be here in Shetland in person. And maybe next time we can get more people. That would be fantastic. So, Andrew, do you want to say anything else before we wrap up?
Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for your coming along and sharing your ideas, and also coming along and sharing your research that's being undertaken and your ideas. It's all very valuable and very timely, and so many different disciplines involved, which is great. So I just wondered, those who are presenters in Scalawa and also who are still available online, like Bryn and Kylie, if maybe just a final word from everybody about how they felt it went today.
I'll jump. Yeah, I was going to say, I'll jump in because I have to run anyway. I really appreciate the opportunity. I think there's a lot of wonderful folks online here, and it's too bad we don't have more time. So maybe if we get to do another thing in the future, that would be good, as suggested might be the case. All right, I'll leave it there, and thanks again.
Thanks,
Thank you very much, Bryn. And Kylie.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to future conversations. There's lots of really interesting work, and I love the fact that we're connecting with the other side of the ocean. And I'd love to get more into and learn more about everyone else's work. And thanks for the connection. Thanks to my supervisor, who I'm sort of here representing, who's Steve Decker, who's at Grenfell and Corner Brook. And yeah, look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you very much, Kylie. And what about the folks in Scalawa?
Any last comments around the table here? We're all kind of dying of the heat, actually.
It's hot, is it?
You open the window again there?
Simon always has something to say. Final word to Simon.
Pat wants to say
I'd
something.
really like to say thank you so much for inviting me, and it's been a real privilege to sit and connect with all these people from the North Atlantic, and it's just amazing. Thank you so much.
Well,
It's been a pleasure having you, Pat.
Thank you.
Could add in that there's so many different elements and so many different strands to this, but I feel that maybe we're just at the start of identifying all the different strands and working to kind of weave it into a nice cohesive tapestry. But at the moment, it feels so many possibilities to explore. It's really exciting and daunting at the same time.
Well, it's such a rare opportunity to get to brainstorm together, right? So, and that's, I think, it was very wide ranging, our conversation, and took lots of notes. And I think, as you say, weaving together into some kind of mosaic, I think is going to be our challenge and our fun. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. And I want to thank Beth as well for allowing us your space here, and Andrew and Simon for being such fantastic leaders. Even Andrew from his bed. You're a mighty fine leader, Andrew. So. Okay, and Alexis too for helping out because she brought us our breakfast.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's amazing what can be done on an island, eh? So there we go.
Yeah.
Right, Mandy just says, is anyone building a research consortium for the funding stream that Sinead highlighted? Yes, indeed. That's what we're going to be discussing next, I think. And Mandy, you'll be on the list. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions. It's been really enjoyable, and it's great to just share ideas and share experience, and ultimately be whittled down and polished off as a research proposal. But that's only part of it. The main thing is to get the conversation going and sharing experience and learning from each other. So thank you very much for a very successful Islands Matter webinar. All the best, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Cheers.
Thanks.